Hello and welcome to OT, the podcast. We're here to talk about watches, time, and other stuff. How to spend it, I guess. I'm Felix Schultz.
And I'm Andy Green. Felix, how you going?
Really well. It's a lovely day today, as always. It's a sunny, wintry afternoon. It's a beautiful, beautiful time to be in the city of Melbourne, in the country of Australia. It's a beautiful time also, Andy, to have this week's guest.
Who is this week's guest?
We are talking to none other than IWC's creative director, Christian Knoop, which makes a lot of sense given the fact that this episode is also sponsored by IWC. So,
Indeed. So we caught up with Christian back during Watches and Wonders and had a bit of a chat to him about a bunch of stuff.
Design, pilot's watches, colourful ceramic, that sort of jazz. So we'll get into that in a minute. And of course, if you want to discover more, head to IWC.com or contact your nearest IWC boutique, which is always a good idea to do in general, Andy. Before that, What have you been up to, Andy?
Me?
Yeah.
I think I mentioned this to you the other day. I've given Better Call Saul, which is the prequel to Breaking Bad. I've given it a second run.
Hang on. Did you just say Baking Bad? Is that like...
Breaking Bad.
Is that Vince Gilligan's cooking show?
Netflix would honestly make it. Breaking Bad. So one of the sort of, the characters from that got a spin-off like 6 years ago, Better Call Saul.
So good.
And I remember watching probably the first 2 seasons and kind of pushing through it and not really appreciating it for what it was. So I stopped. And then, you know how it goes with subscriptions. I signed up to whatever it's on here in Australia.
Binge.
I think it's on Binge. It's probably your fault that I signed up to Binge.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely your fault. And so I saw it was on there and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this another shot because it's into its 6th season.
Yeah, good.
It must get good.
Yeah. Well, I think it was good beforehand, Andy, because I mean, the relationship with his brother, that was pretty traumatic.
Is that like you and Morgie? Because he's also, he's a lawyer.
Yeah, I'm also a much more crooked lawyer. No, I mean, 100%. And does it get better? Are
so much better.
Are you up to date? Are you like at current?
I'm waiting for the next episode. Yeah, I binge watched it in like 2 weeks. It is. I didn't appreciate it at the time. Yeah. So that's on me.
Do you know who I think gets better and better? Aside from Bob Odenkirk, who is a living champion, Mike Ehrmantraut.
Yes.
Oh.
The whole thing, all of the character development and the way it's done, and it's so broad. It's really quite perfect. It's always been good. I didn't appreciate it at the time. And speaking to other people, a lot of people gave up because I think it's a pace thing. It's very slow at the start. There's a lot of characters to keep tabs on. It's not really the sort of show you can watch week to week because it is so slow and there's so many characters. Sort of like Game of Thrones, where you need to...
but with more drugs.
Actually, less drugs. Less drugs. More killing.
I've got more killing than Game of Thrones. That's a bold claim. I have a potentially hot take that I don't think it's too hot. I actually think it's probably better than Breaking Bad.
I agree.
Because it's less sensationalist. There's smaller stories in some ways, and like I always like those peripheral. Like for me, they were always the most interesting characters about Breaking Bad, like the people on the sides of it.
Yep. And the perspectives that the director gives as well, just inanimate, random objects. Also, they see him and how they tie into the story. And I mean, it's all about explaining, Saul's backstory, but then a bunch of the other characters you learn more about them.
Yeah, they are sort of a recurring cast. It's cool. Yeah, it's really cool, and it's a really good throwback. I should jump in as well, but I've been watching too much TV at the moment, Andy.
Yeah.
First up, quick shout out, latest series of RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars, phenomenal. I'm going to go out on a limb and say perhaps the greatest series of RuPaul I've seen in 5-10 years.
Sure.
Also, I've been watching another show which surprisingly doesn't yet have a timekeeping relationship because it's called Winning Time: The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty on HBO. Have you heard of this?
I've seen it pop up on Binge. I haven't dived into it yet.
It is exceptional, Andy. It centers around, as you can gather from the title, it's the rise of the Lakers dynasty, the LA Lakers NBA team. Starts off with sort of Magic Johnson joining the team in 1979, and there's a new owner.
Mhm.
Jerry Buss played phenomenally by John C. Riley, one of the greatest actors of our time.
Yep.
Um, and it sort of it goes through like a 360. It's not just about the game. It's not just about the business. It sort of segues through all of them in a really really great way. Uh, Excellent sort of ensemble cast. You got Jason Segel, Rob Morgan, Adrian Brody. Um, but it also does a really, really neat job of showing the 70s, like the way it's filmed. It sort of goes through, like it flips through different types of like filter and photography style so that it actually looks like 70s like game footage when they're on the court
Oh, yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, yeah.
And it's really, really, really well done. And it sort of brings in a lot of broader culture around basketball. Like I just found out that Paula Abdul was the first Lakers girl, and
Hmm.
that sort of talks about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and race relations and all that change in the 70s. This was obviously an 80s. It's quite relevant
Yeah.
today. So that's yeah, really been proper like prestige TV, which is really really good. Uh, on top of that, I've been reading a Substack.
Mhm.
Sadly, not Randy's Substack, nor even Jason Heaton's Substack, but another OT alumni,
Oh, yeah.
Chris Hall
Been a few.
from Mr. Porter. You may remember
Ah,
him.
Mr. Hall, great guy.
Yeah, and so he's got a Substack newsletter called Fourth Wheel.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's 4 issues in now. It's sort of the typical blend of like, hey, this is what I've been up to. I assume he does lots of watch stuff that he doesn't necessarily talk about at Porter, and he's on their schedule. So the last one was all about the Oak Collection,
Uh-huh.
which we cannot escape because they seem to have invited the entire Northern Hemisphere to it. Um, Side note: Are you across the Oak Collection?
Yes.
Why do you think the thing that I immediately wonder about it is you've got a massive collection of watches. Why are
Yep.
you exhibiting it in a global tour? Is it because you're going to sell it, or is it for some sort of tax write off?
Well, they did Talking Watches recently, the most recent Talking Watches, right?
No.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Ben came out for this one.
But did they say why they're doing it?
No, I don't know. I don't know
Like
why.
that's the first thing these days I wonder is like, hey, so you've got one of the most significant investments of investment grade watches in the world.
Yep.
Why are you being so public about it, and why are you? Because it's been pretty private up until now. Uh,
Well, it's part of a museum showcase, right?
well, it's his personal collection,
Yep.
and he happens to be on the board of the design museum.
People do that in the art world, though. That's pretty common to,
Y- y-
have pieces on display or donate them.
but they do it for tax reasons or
Mm.
other reasons.
Yeah, get your name on a wing or something.
Yeah, like that's why I'm the cynic in me goes, why is this happening now? Maybe it's like so you can
It's $100 million collection, right?
six, I think 300 million. I was the number I saw. Maybe
Wow.
it's like 600 watches. Anyway, I could be wrong.
And how do you sell it, right? So you would need to do a bit of a press tour because how do you sell
Hmm.
that in one go? I
Mm,
mean, auction
I
house is the
mean,
natural route.
yeah. So he talks about that. Maybe we can get him on and get his. Actually, he's not going to tell us what he really thinks because he's professional like that. Because he lured me in with the hint of salacious gossip,
Uh-huh.
which I love, Andy.
What
Obviously,
is it?
so there are a few little key points. We'll link it up. You can check it out. But one of the ones that is it's perfect, like page 6 stuff.
Yep.
And I'm quoting here, I'm told that at company name redacted for obvious reasons, there is a perfect storm brewing of mismanagement, scandal, embezzlement, and loss making. And that if you know where to look in the French speaking Swiss press, the stories are there.
Interesting. What brand do you think it is?
I'm not going to, I mean, what brand isn't it?
What could it be?
Who knows? Join our Discord to find out the inside take on what we really think of less, defamation friendly,
Yep.
hot takes. But also, we should talk quickly, Andy,
Mm.
about our friends from South Australia.
Artem Straps. What have they done this week?
They've done a fair bit, actually. So if you've been across their Instagram, artem.straps, you'll have noticed they've finally released an all black NATO.
Yes, fantastic news, isn't it?
Yes. Their NATO straps are pretty top notch, doing that really fine line between like heavy grade premium, what you want from an expensive NATO, but
Mm.
also not being like too fancy and polished and shiny that it doesn't feel like that it'll go on a beaten up dive watch. The only criticism you could possibly have had with them, the current selection, is that there's too many stripes.
Yes.
This strap solves that problem by only offering you solid black fabric.
Yeah, and I mean, if you need any further, solidification of a decision to buy an Artem Strap,
Mm.
just read the comments on the Instagram. Uh, Mancy watches, fire emoji, hand clap emoji, best NATO's going, and I agree.
I mean, I think we cannot argue with Mancy watches.
Mancy, well, look, he's got quite the collection. He's quite the photographer.
Mm.
As I browse his Instagram profile as
You give
well,
it, you tap it a follow.
I think I will. He's got really clean photographs.
Okay,
Yeah,
done.
well, so he knows what he's talking about, as do we.
Sure. One other, just I know we've got to get on with the app, but another update that's worth noting with Artem is they've updated their loopless straps.
Hmm.
They've made them a little bit smaller,
Yep, shorter.
shorter. Yeah, so I think they've shaved 7 millimeters off the total length, and I think that will mean
Hmm.
that for people with slightly smaller wrists, it'll be a better fit, and even maybe a
Yep.
better if you're between hot like holes in the deployment, it'll be a better fit in that way as well. If that makes sense. Anyway,
A thoughtful decision.
yeah, check it out at artemstraps.com, socials, artem.straps. We should probably, Andy,
Mm.
move on to the main guest, the star of the show, the key attraction,
Yeah, the reason you're all here.
IWC's creative director, Christian Knoop. We recorded this, as we said at the top, at Watches and Wonders. So, Zoom, he's in a busy conference hall.
Hmm.
But we got some hot takes from him on design, pilots watches, Big Pilot 43,
Lake Tahoe,
all
Woodlands.
that good stuff. So
Yeah,
I think,
big releases from them this year.
yeah, we should pipe down, let the man speak.
All right, let's do it, Felix.
Today, we're talking to IWC's creative director, Christian Knoop, the man who is largely responsible for shepherding IWC's designs from concept to reality. Welcome to OT, Christian. It's a pleasure to speak to you.
Yes, hello. Warm welcome from Geneva. I'm live here at the Watches and Wonders in Geneva. Good afternoon, Felix.
Good afternoon, or good morning for you, actually. But before we talk about some of the watches that are all over our Instagram feeds, I want to sort of start broad. In your job, it's rare to sort of come up with a completely new design. You're typically working with something that's been part of IWC's past or heritage. When you're doing something like that, how do you decide what to keep and what to cut?
There is no rules, basically, but you're absolutely describing the magic formula, which pretty much describes our work as designers, but also as a brand. Really, to stay faithful to the DNA of the brand, we have a rich history with many facets, and at the same time, we aim to surprise our customers with something new and something unexpected. And to combine the two really makes the formula of a successful new collection. And yeah, we're very excited of what we have put together this year.
Fantastic. How do you stay creative?
I mean, I really believe that designers are a different breed, like musicians or everyone else who is very good at their profession. They just look at the world with different eyes. I mean, when I walk around, I see a lot of design details, things probably other people would never notice. And same like a musician who listens to the world in a different way. And I think this is where we all draw the inspiration from as creatives, and in the end, also every creation is a result of observations, of inspirations we have gathered in very different moments of our life.
Yeah, you mentioned fashion, and you're mentioning different sort of sectors or areas of design. One thing that I always find that must be challenging with watches is you're dealing with such a long production cycle. Like, I could be very wrong about this, but watches that brands are designing today won't be in a boutique until 3 or maybe 5 years time. Do you think that this sort of long lead time lead itself to a conservative design approach?
Yeah, I think that there's two aspects. We have a product that is designed to last for generations, and this also has an impact on the aesthetic flexibility or aesthetic preferences also people will have when they purchase one of our precious products. But on the other hand, we also have a longer lead time because we are technically also designing something that has to last very long. We have a full test lab in Schaffhausen that simulates the lifespan of a product of 10, 20, 30 years. And I mean, you don't have this in any other industry. I mean, most of the consumer goods we are all confronted with every day. I mean, they're designed to last maybe a couple of years, maybe 10 years, like a car. But this is a lifespan they're designed for. But our technical assets, our processes, our components, we assess for the product. They have to last much longer, and this is what we have to test, and what is very exciting to observe also in our manufacturing center in Schaffhausen how we do that. But this has an impact also on the lead times for the development. For example, this year we're talking ceramics, and ceramics, I mean, it's a very durable material. It's a fantastic material, but it's also a material that takes a long time to produce. To get a special color in ceramic, this takes months just to get the first color sample. And so this has an impact on the way we design and we work.
And I'll get to those very bold colors of ceramic in a second, but as we've got you for a little bit of time, something that I always find fascinating talking to experts in their field is I've got a conception of what you do. I imagine you're looking at, I don't know, sort of 3D printed models and poring over sketches. What's something in your job that is critical and important that isn't obvious or recognized from the outside?
I think what is important, I mean, most of the people are aware that designers do exactly what you describe, work with sketches, work in 3D software, compare colors, swatches, and prototypes. But it's really, one of the things, what is really important is to also form a kind of lead idea, that something that really, where people say, okay, yes, that's it. And this is something that describes the entire collection, the entire capsule, the entire edition you want to do, and especially nowadays. I mean, we have so many new products coming to the market every week. I mean, the amount of new watches is enormous, and the quality of design is also very high. So there's very high standards. So what in the end is needed to make your brand and your product stand out is a very catchy formula of a product that can be identified with a brand and immediately recognized, and second, also where you really immediately understand what this product is about and what makes it so special, and to not only describe this in words but also make this very visible and say, oh wow, that's new because.
Amazing. And speaking of new watches, this year, we're talking about the Pilot. And how have you made this year's Pilot's releases relevant to the modern audience?
Yeah, I think what we did this year, it's the closing chapter of the big Pilots launch we started last year. We had a fantastic launch. We have a collection out there which is very successful, which we have promoted with a unique campaign all over the world. And what we launched this year is a chapter that is actually dedicated to two things. It's about IWC's story in professional watches, and B, it's our story as inventor and innovator in colored ceramics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this is a good time to mention one of my favorite of the new releases, the white ceramic Lake Tahoe, I believe.
Very cool.
Why white ceramic? Historically, that's sort of been a color that's been coded as feminine. I'm thinking of the watch like the iconic Chanel J12. Do you think that the taste around this particular shade of ceramic is changing?
No, I think it's funny that you say this association, but actually we were the first brand to come up with white zirconium oxide watches in 1986. So it's invented by IWC. So we invented zirconium colored ceramic watches. And so that's an important statement to make, and that's obviously an obligation for us to keep this this pioneering position in ceramics. So over the last few years, we have introduced various types of ceramics. We have extended the use of ceramics into the movements. So most of our manufacture movements use ceramic components like automatic wheel, the peloton winding, clicks, and so on, all in ceramic. That's very unique. And now we with this collection in the 4 ceramic colors we're presenting, the white Lake Tahoe, the sand colored Mojave, the green woodland, and the jet black black watches, we really make a statement of colored ceramic watches and the unique formula that is true to our DNA, as I said in the beginning, but brings a very new and fresh look at IWC's pilots watches.
Yeah, amazing. And that, Lake Tahoe, I was lucky enough to try it on and have it on the wrists. And what I found really interesting was just how versatile, firstly it was, but also how kind of crisp and clean the white was. And I imagine there's quite a few challenges getting, or correct me if I'm wrong, but is there some challenges kind of putting together a white ceramic watch?
It is absolutely. I mean, it sounds so simple to just take some white ceramics and you might also think, okay, white is the most obvious color when you think about ceramics in all our realities, but actually it is a very challenging process to get exactly the right color white. And here the whole color definition story comes in. And we partnered with a world-leading company in colors, in color language. That's Pantone. And so Pantone colors are the reference point for all designers, for all creatives in different fields, and we are very proud to present our collaboration with them on these colors. And so most of the people would just say, okay, that's white, that's green, that's sand colored, but it's not. For us as designers, this is really the part of our work, really not only take color inspiration, but have exactly the right color, the right white, the right green, and the right sand colored. And this is really what makes our work, and where we also got Pantone involved as the leading partner for color specification and standardization, and created a fantastic color set here. And then in the second job, we also had to extend these colors to other components, because you also notice, well, it's not only the white ceramic case, but it's also the matching strap, and matching in other watches like the Woodland, we have matching dials and so on, to get the same color out of very different processes from different suppliers in different materials. This is a lot of work, and this is the true challenge in the whole monochromatic approach we are describing here in the color set.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Pantone is obviously the reference point for color. Their colors of the year. Maybe we can expect to see some. Is it Very Perry?
Very Perry, yeah, this
Very
year.
Perry next year.
That'd be
but
cool.
one thing that I sort of find really compelling about these colorful watches, and I'm a huge fan of the Mojave, is that there's some sort of tension between the Pilot, which is such a purposeful instrument, and IWC's legacy obviously is really huge in that sort of tool watch space. How do you integrate elements of mixing it up with colored ceramics and colorful dials and things like that without sort of becoming too fashion or sort of trend driven?
No, but this is exactly a very, very interesting question, because this is the second thing I introduced right in the beginning, that we want to make a reference to our heritage as manufacturer of professional watches. I mean, we started with professional watches in 1915, manufacturing observation watches for the British Navy. And from there, we got really the reputation for ultra precise and robust watches, which then also resulted in the famous Mark 11, which is still the reference point of the pilot's watch DNA in IWC. And from there on, we did watches, diving watches, also for the German military divers, the so-called Ocean 2000 Bund. And so we have a long-standing history being a manufacturer of professional watches in IWC. And here, when it comes to the pilot's watches, over the last couple of years, we really have worked very closely with various squadrons from the US Navy. And these squadrons are Top Gun squadrons. I mean, we have Top Gun as the premium and high performance part of the pilots collection. And these Top Gun pilots are really the elite of fast jet pilots, and this is one of the most extreme and most advanced pilot trainings in the world. So we're very proud to have them as a partners. And then working with these different squadrons, we learned about the different patches, the different different stories and the different uniforms, and this also inspired, together with actually the landscapes where they train, like the Mojave Desert that gave the name to the color, gave the inspiration for that. I mean, basically, each of the colors really finds its inspiration in the world of fast jet pilots from the Top Gun program. You have the black, which really comes from the technical parts of the plane. You have the white that's coming from, obviously, the service uniforms from Top Gun, but you also have the green of the flight suits of the Woodland. You have then the Mojave, which is the khaki uniforms, also the work uniforms of the Navy pilots. So all these colors are inspired really from the universe of a professional fast jet pilot and the landscapes they train in, and this is what we want to make as a point. And then in the refinement of these colors, we got Pantone involved, and really we're tweaking them to the fine point of a luxury statement watch. And it's also interesting to observe there's many of these colors, however, they have this inspiration in military, and the pilots really made their way into lifestyle and fashion culture. I mean, this is very popular and very powerful colors, which you can also observe with many sneaker brands, with many streetwear and lifestyle brands. So this blends together in a very interesting way, and this is where also I believe that the IWC customer will appreciate the true inspiration which comes from the professional, but really enjoy the fashion aspect of these color schemes.
Yeah, amazing. Well, what I'm curious to know is, we've mentioned a couple of these new watches, but what's your pick of the IWC new releases for 2022?
Yeah, I think that we give a fantastic range of colors on IWC chronographs. So also combining our chronograph competence, and that's a new chapter, and a very exciting chapter we added to one of our most iconic lines, the pilots.
Yeah, that's a great answer, Christian. I personally can't wait to get a little bit close and personal with the new 43mm in Ceratanium. I think that looks very, very nice. But I'm aware you've got another interview to go to in a second. I have one last question for you. Typically, we sort of get people to close on a recommendation, something that they've been reading or enjoying in their time off. I suspect you haven't had any time off in a while. So as a designer or a creative, are there any sort of texts or references or even pieces of art that you constantly come back to that you find will just refresh and inspire you, perhaps after a long, week in Geneva at the fair?
Yeah, I've just been to Berlin and being to the National Gallery of Mies van der Rohe. I mean, he's a designer and architect which I still find very, very inspiring, and you probably also find this back in a couple of architectural aspects. Also, what we've been doing as a brand, and also Chris Granger and myself, we both really appreciate his design language, and we share that passion for his work. So that's definitely something I really like, and where I look up to.
That's great. I can't go wrong with Mies van der Rohe. Well, Mr. Christian Knoop, it's been lovely chatting to you. Enjoy the rest of your fair, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy day.
Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you so
Felix.
much.
Thanks, Andy.
Christian Knoop, what a guy. What a great guest to have on the show. Thank you so much to IWC watchers. Check out all their new releases, everything we talked about and more at IWC.com. And yes, of course, thank you, Artem Straps. Felix, where can the people go if they want to email us with, creative direction?
There it is. otthepodcast@gmail.com, ot.podcast on Instagram if you prefer, 21st century communication of just sliding into the DMs.
And our Discord, as always, it'll be linked up. Get in there. It's a great time. Thank you so much for listening. If you like OT, subscribe and make sure you leave a 5-star review wherever you leave your reviews.
I think you should definitely send this podcast to a mentor in your life.
Someone influential.
Blue ticks only.
Yep. All right, next week, guys, we will see you then.